Britain has now reached 100,000 deaths from the coronavirus. It was nearly a year ago that Boris Johnson gave his famous speech just down the river in Greenwich.
When there is a risk that new diseases such as coronavirus will trigger a panic that go beyond what is medically rational, then, at that moment, humanity needs some government somewhere, ready to take off its Clark Kent spectacles and leap into the phone booth and emerge with its cloak flowing.
We locked down too late, and we had the worst coronavirus deaths in Europe, one of the highest per capita in the world of any developed country.
World-beating.
And we also had the highest healthcare and care worker deaths. So world-beating, yeah, like the worst.
Certainly is, and it certainly does fit that description as world-beating.
And also for those people who say, well, you know, if you lock down, you damage the economy. Well, actually, two things happened together. We had the biggest hit of our economy in the OECD. So it was a double whammy of disaster and one of the worst in the world. 100,000 people died, and what did a lot of businesses do? They decided, let's make money from this. We know many of them were Conservative Party donors. It's only recently a big laptop deal for £2 million from a company which had invested, or rather donated, £100,000 to the Conservative Party. We have a minister involved in the vaccine programme whose family company is now involved in the medical business. You know, it's a small network of people. Dido Harding, who's a friend of the Conservative Party, gets a job running Test and Trace. All this money outsourced to people like Serco when it could be done by local authorities. So after covering this for about 6 months, on our own mainly, the National Audit Office assessed all these contracts around PPE, and they found that there was a fast track for ministers, members of the House of Lords, officials, that they could submit their own bids or their contacts' bids. This is completely a sign of cronyism. This reveals the legs under the table, the way that being a Conservative Party donor is an investment. You put in £100,000, you get a £20 million contract. It's as plain as that. Now, the problem is with this, as we face an ongoing healthcare crisis, what's next? They've gone into school meals, they've gone into PPE. What else do they want to privatise? We know there's an issue with data. Palantir, Peter Thiel, the right-wing Trump supporter, getting involved in our health data. There seems to be no scrutiny or oversight. And we are in danger as the sick man of Europe being overtaken by this very corrupt system of the few looking after each other, where children go hungry, where the money, our money, is spent with their mates who are already rich. They trust their people who, during their pandemic, seem to have ripped us off more, and yet everybody else, they think are going to cheat them a couple of quid on a food voucher. We, the taxpayer, we, the people, are being siphoned off our resources, not to protect us, but protect a few. So Britain's poor performance, people say, well, we're not as bad as Belgium, well, we're actually worse, but they go around trying to find the odd country who's had a higher mortality rate occasionally. What a position to be in. We're not the bottom, we're second from the bottom. The countries who have done the best. Zero COVID. You've got to stamp it out. Track, trace, eliminate. Our track and trace system doesn't work. The government messaging has been wrong. It's like there's a laissez-faire libertarian attitude to it, which led to the English variant, by the way. And we missed the whole point. You have to track it down. You have to get rid of it. If it becomes endemic, it might mutate to be worse. You have to eliminate it. Only when we take a zero COVID response, and that's us as individuals and the government, that we'll be able to show the best practice and have the success of other countries. The good news about the government is they're incompetent. They can be pressurised to change tune and U-turn. There was a U-turn over herd immunity. There's another U-turn about the lockdown, obviously, when the second wave hit. Over school meals, they can be forced to U-turn over that. They are not one voice. There is a fight within government. People change their mind. Apparently, Dominic Cummings changed his mind. Maybe he's testing his eyesight at the time. There is a sense there's a lot still to play for. The problem revealed by the pandemic and the infodemic combined with Brexit is the whole problem with the British state, the organisation of the media, its accountability, the House of Lords being stuffed with Boris's pals. And the problem with the vote leave government, they are like the worst people you'd ever want to run a government during a pandemic. Why? Well, they're liars. We know that Boris Johnson made a career out of lies, sacked from the Times for lying, Daily Telegraph made his career lying about Europe, and we know they lied in their campaign. 350 million to the NHS, Turkey is coming over here. We know they lied about how much money they spent, and they broke the law. So we have a government which is mainly led by pundits, by Gove and Johnson, who are adept spinners of truth. And so at the top of the table, we have people who've got that way through twisting the media, being a very effective and mendacious campaigners. And you can't lie about a virus. You can't sing Rule Britannia to it, you can't spin it, you can't pretend that it's not happening, you can't fix the figures even of death. And you have to wake up reality. Your chutzpah, your lawyer-like ability to spin the truth, does not work with a replicating pathogen. It doesn't care. And a bit like during Chernobyl, when the Soviet authorities tried to cover up what's gone wrong there. One of the key scientists pointed out the cost of lies.
What is the cost of lies? It's not that we'll mistake them for the truth. The real danger is that if we hear enough lies, then we no longer recognize the truth at all. What can we do then? What else is left but to abandon even the hope of truth and content ourselves instead with stories?
What have been the cost of the pandemic lies? Well, at least 100,000 dead. And yet this government remains at 40% in the polls. So is there no cost to lies, except to us? Well, this is up to us to decide. Because if we allow this government to have got away with the worst coronavirus record in Europe and one of the worst in the world and do nothing about it, what's to stop them doing whatever they like in the future? So the crucial thing is an informed electorate, and that's why I'd say it, and I'll say it again, support Double Down News and Byline Times. So to fight the infodemic, to help our natural social immune system, to hold this government to account, subscribe to Double Down News on Patreon.